The mess hall buzzed with the usual chaos of hungry service members, a sea of olive drab and clattering trays. Among them stood Commander Sarah Mitchell. She had arrived just 3 hours earlier. To the room, she was a ghost. She watched the natural divisions form, branch lines drawn in the sand of a cafeteria floor, exactly as she expected. Then the friction began, a rough shove, a physical challenge in a place of supposed order, a sharp yank on her hair. Pain shot through her scalp, followed by a voice that smelled of unearned confidence. "Marines eat first around here," he growled. Morrison, a man who had never been told no. "Excuse me?" she asked. Her heart rate climbed, but her voice remained like a still lake, cold and deep. He called her a Navy pencil pusher. His friends provided the chorus of laughter he required to feel large. Every eye turned. She could have walked away. It would have been the smart political move, but she wasn't a politician. Sarah Mitchell hadn't become the first female SEAL team leader by backing down. She wasn't about to start now. "I'll stay right here," she said. The silence that followed was heavier than the words themselves. Morrison stepped closer, using his mass like a weapon. He didn't understand why his gravity wasn't pulling her down. She ignored his threats and stirred her coffee. Casual dismissal is the ultimate insult to a bully's ego. He spoke of real combat, of warriors versus paper pushers. He was describing a world he thought she didn't belong to. A Master Chief moved to intervene, but she stopped him with a glance. This wasn't a rescue mission. It was an observation. "Are you done?" she asked. Her tone was conversational, which made the snickers from the crowd cut even deeper. He told her someone should teach her respect. She met his eyes without flinching. "Someone tried once," she replied. Survival instinct held him back. He settled for a sneer and a slosh of spilled coffee. He thought he won. She sat alone. They had no idea. In 12 hours, the hierarchy of this base would be fundamentally rewritten. The Master Chief saw it then, the posture, the eyes. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "let's keep it between us." Outside, the sun set over the water, painting the sky in the colors of a warning, the calm before the ceremony. Arrogance is a blindfold. Morrison didn't see a commander. He saw what his own bias allowed him to see. He had no idea he had just made the biggest mistake of his career. Tomorrow, the pencil pusher takes command.
Chow 500 hours. Sarah Mitchell was already awake. For an hour, she'd stared at the ceiling of her temporary quarters, reflecting on the long, jagged path that brought her to this morning. It started far from the ocean, in a small town in Montana. Her parents were good, simple people who expected a traditional life for her. College, marriage, kids. But Sarah was different. While others played with dolls, she built forts. When they wouldn't let her play football, she joined the wrestling team. She never backed down. The Navy wasn't the plan her parents had for her. Her mother cried. Her father went silent for a week. But Sarah's mind was set. She traded the big sky country for the relentless discipline of boot camp, a place that seemed determined to break her. One drill sergeant called her girl with pure contempt, piling on extra miles and extra push-ups. When she finished every grueling task, she looked him dead in the eye and asked, "Is that all, Sergeant?" That was 15 years ago. 15 years of proving herself. 15 years of being the first woman in every room on every team. Today, her service khakis fit perfectly, the Navy cross on her chest telling a story of fear pushed aside and duty done. She was ready. Lieutenant Commander Torres, a veteran SEAL, met her outside. He was honest about the talk, the questions about her gender and merit. Sarah didn't flinch. Torres saw the Navy cross. He knew she belonged. He was ready to show the unit what they could accomplish under her command. As 0900 approached, Sarah Mitchell walked toward the ceremony. This wasn't just about her anymore. She was representing every woman who'd been told she wasn't tough enough. She wasn't just taking command, she was making history, and she wasn't going to let them down.
The ceremony space was set on the parade ground. Rows of white chairs faced a raised platform, silent witnesses to the transition of power. The American flag and the Navy Jack hung side by side, barely moving in the breeze. Staff Sergeant Morrison sat in the third row with his Marine security team, looking bored and slightly hungover. He was whispering to the guy next to him, likely embellishing a story from the night before. Admiral Reeves stood near the platform. When he saw Sarah Mitchell approaching, His weathered face broke into a genuine smile. He excused himself and walked over to her. Reeves warned her of the incident in the mess hall. He pointed out Morrison, but Sarah had already spotted him. Her response was simple and professional. "Nothing I couldn't handle, sir." At precisely 0900, the ceremony began. The honor guard marched to position, their movements synchronized and sharp. The base commander took the podium for the formalities. Sarah stood at attention, a silhouette of discipline. She could feel the eyes on her, people questioning her presence. Even Morrison leaned over, likely asking his buddy the same question. Admiral Reeves gave his speech about leadership, duty, and the history of the SEAL teams. He spoke of the challenges ahead and the vital importance of adapting to new situations. Then he turned and looked directly at Sarah. "It is my honor to introduce your new commanding officer. Commander Sarah Mitchell has served her country with distinction for 15 years. She has operated in the most dangerous environments on Earth. She has earned every commendation through blood, sweat, and an unbreakable will. She has earned her trident." Confusion rippled through the crowd, but in the third row, recognition hit Morrison like a freight train. His face went pale, then red. The nobody was now his CO. Sarah walked up the steps, her stride confident. She took her position next to Reeves and looked out at the assembly. 200 faces, ranging from curious to openly hostile. The oath was taken. "I do, sir." With those words, the transfer of command was official. The unit was now hers. Sarah stepped to the microphone, and the parade ground went silent. "I know many of you are wondering if I can do this job. That's fair. I'm wondering the same thing about some of you." A few surprised laughs rippled through the crowd. "I will never ask you to do something I won't do myself. I will lead from the front, and I will earn your respect through my actions." The unit was now hers.
The briefing room was a windowless vault. 6 team leaders sat in the gloom, evaluating the woman who would now lead them. Lieutenant Chen, sharp and young. Rodriguez, with decades of salt in his veins. They waited for Sarah to fail. They waited for a mistake. "Gentlemen, have a seat." She skipped the speeches and asked the only thing that mattered. "What keeps you up at night?" They spoke of Syria, of political delays and museum-grade gear. Sarah didn't flinch. She promised action, not politics. By the end, the smirks turned to smiles. Rodriguez admitted he might have been wrong. A fair shot was all she needed. Trust isn't given. It's built in 1,000 small interactions. Day 1 was done. Tomorrow, the real work begins.
Sarah's alarm cut through the silence at 0430. She dressed quickly and headed out into the pre-dawn darkness. A 1.5-mile jog to the warehouse, the quiet before the base fully woke up. She arrived at 0545 to find Lieutenant Chen's team already checking gear. They weren't expecting the commander this early. She watched as Chen briefed the hostage rescue scenario. Collaborative, focused, professional. Stack up. Move in 5. They used sim rounds, paintball ammunition that stings like hell. Sarah followed at a distance, watching them move through the first floor with clinical efficiency. Precision in every shadow. Things got complicated on the second floor. Hostiles popped from cover, and in the adrenaline-fueled chaos, one operator flagged his teammate. A minor breach of protocol, but deadly in a real operation. They secured the hostage, but complacency set in on the exit. They failed to recheck a storage room. A role player emerged behind them and killed 2 operators. Exercise over. The failure was fresh. Chen called the debrief immediately. Sarah watched as the team took ownership. "I was focused on the threat and forgot my spacing," one said. No excuses. Chen was blunt. Sloppy and deadly, Sarah offered her assessment. "Your mistakes were mental, not physical. Make training harder than reality. Randomize your scenarios." Then, she threw down a challenge that silenced the room. "Run it again. Same scenario, but I'm going to be a hostile." She needed to show them she could hang. Chen blinked, then respect shifted in his eyes. "We won't go easy on you," he warned. 10 minutes later, the team stacked up. Sarah felt the adrenaline flood her system. This was the test. The razor's edge between being a leader and being a figurehead. She waited for the point man. He committed to the haul, and Sarah popped 3 quick shots. The point man was down. But the team didn't freeze. They adapted instantly, splitting to flank her position with newfound discipline. They overwhelmed her eventually. Sarah stood with sim marks on her shoulder, hands raised. "I won't ask you to do anything I wouldn't do myself," she told them. The barriers were finally coming down. One team down, 5 to go. The SEALs were won over by the sweat and the sim rounds, but Sarah knew her real test was still coming, especially from the Marines, especially Morrison. Friday evening, Commander Sarah was in her office finishing paperwork when Torres knocked. He warned her about Staff Sergeant Morrison, a Marine running his mouth in the barracks. Morrison was claiming Sarah wasn't fit for command, that the Navy put her in charge for political reasons, and she couldn't hack it in a real fight. He was undermining her authority, creating division between the SEALs and the Marines. Torres wanted her to bring him up on charges, but Sarah had a different plan. "What's the Marines' next training cycle?" she asked. She didn't want to hide behind regulations. She wanted to show him. She ordered Morrison assigned to her unit for the simulated compound raid on Monday. "You have to show them," she told Torres. Morrison would see firsthand. Over the weekend, she prepared with an intensity that left no room for error. She studied every scenario and every operator's capability. She even called her father. He reminded her of a childhood bully she'd defeated on the baseball diamond. "You've always been someone who proves yourself through action, Sarah. Go show that Marine what you're made of," he said. Sarah smiled. She was ready. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. The mission was complex. Rescue 3 hostages from a fortified compound. Morrison was assigned to Sarah's team, watching her every move for weakness. The signal was given. Sarah led the primary assault element. They moved with a fluid precision that left Morrison breathless. He found no hesitation in her. They breached the walls and cleared the ground floor room by room. Sarah's tactical brilliance was on full display, her movements economical and precise. On the 3rd floor, her instincts screamed trap. Morrison was skeptical, but she ignored him. She used herself as bait to draw out the ambush. The maneuver was perfect. While the enemy focused on the bait, the team flanked them, securing the final hostages in under 5 seconds. Mission accomplished. Afterward, Morrison approached. "I owe you an apology, ma'am," he said. "I thought you were just a political appointee. I was wrong." "Sorry isn't enough," Sarah replied. "You need to do better. Respect must be earned through capability, not assumptions based on gender." She gave him a second chance, embedding him with the SEALs for their next training cycles. "Don't thank me yet," she warned. "It will be the hardest training of your life." Morale shifted. The men saw they had a leader who truly understood the fight. "The teams are ready," Senior Chief Rodriguez told her later. Whispers of Somalia were flying, a high-value target mission. Sarah knew if those rumors were true, they would need to be at their absolute best. The challenge was looming, but the division was gone. The SEALs and Marines were finally working as one team, one purpose. Sarah stood ready. Whatever comes next, they are prepared to face it, proved through action. This is the Sarah story.
3 weeks later, the rumors became reality. Sarah sat in a secure briefing room looking at satellite photos of a compound in southern Somalia. The target was Khalid Hassan. For 5 years, he had coordinated terrorist activities across East Africa. Now, intelligence finally had him pinned. Admiral Reeves was direct. The mission: insert, capture, or eliminate and extract. But the compound was a fortress in a hostile desert. Time was the enemy. Hassan would move within 72 hours. The operation had to be clean, fast, and quiet. Sarah studied the layout. 2 stories, thick walls, and 0 cover. Getting in undetected would be a tactical nightmare. There would be no drones, no safety net, just helicopter insertion and a team counting on silence and superior tactics. "This is your first combat deployment as unit commander," Reeves warned. "Everyone will be watching." Sarah nodded. She already knew. She made the call. She wouldn't lead from the tactical center. Sarah would be on the ground in the fight with her team. Her team raised objections. It was an unnecessary risk. But for Sarah, it was the only way to earn the respect of her unit. They spent 48 hours in a fever of preparation. Each operator memorized the layout until they could navigate it blindfolded. Staff Sergeant Morrison watched from the sidelines. He warned her. The extraction would be tricky. The helicopters would be vulnerable. Morrison urged more shooters, but Sarah stood by her choice. 12 men. Speed and surprise were their only advantages. Morrison had earned his place. Sarah looked toward the future. Cross-training the Marines and SEALs was the next step. The night before deployment, sleep was a stranger. The weight of every life under her command felt like a physical burden. A text from her mother arrived, a sixth sense from home. "Stay safe, we love you." A brief moment of humanity before the storm. At 0400, the silence broke. The team loaded. The long flight to Somalia was a tunnel of focused preparation. Sarah used the hours to visualize every phase. Across from her, Rodriguez sat calm. He had done this dozens of times before. But for Sarah, this was different. This was her first time leading men into combat from the commander's chair. This was her purpose. 15 minutes to insertion. Heart rate up. Gear check. Rifle ready. Grenade secured. Night vision operational. Everything was go. "Trust your teammates. Trust your training," she told them. "Stay sharp and let's bring Hassan back to face justice." The helicopters descended rapidly, low and fast. The crew chief gave the 30-second warning. The world narrowed to a single point. They were on the ground in seconds, fast roping into the cool desert night. Sarah hit the ground running, moving into formation. The helicopters pulled away, their roar fading into the darkness. In seconds, they were alone in hostile territory. 1,000 miles from friendly forces, the silence returned. But it wasn't empty. The operation had begun.
The team moved through the darkness like ghosts. In the world of special operations, plans are just educated guesses until reality hits. Sarah knew this better than anyone. Night vision turned the world into shades of tactical green. They covered the quarter-mile to the target in under 5 minutes, moving quickly but carefully. Intel was just a starting point. The compound appeared, a squat 2-story structure. Lights burned in a few windows. Someone was awake. Rodriguez signaled the halt, and the team vanished into the shadows. A man appeared on the roof, a sentry. Intel hadn't mentioned him. Sarah adjusted her plan on the fly. She signaled Williams, their sniper, to take the shot on her mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Williams's rifle coughed once. The sentry collapsed without a sound. "Move," Sarah whispered. The breach was on. They scaled the wall with practiced ease. Rodriguez secured the courtyard. They stacked up at the main entrance, a heavy wooden door, locked. Sarah signaled for the charge. "Breach! Breach! Breach!" The charge detonated with a crack that shattered the desert silence. The door blew inward, and the team rushed through the smoke into instant chaos. 3 armed men scrambled for weapons. The assault team engaged with lethal precision. All 3 went down in seconds. But the noise had alerted the rest of the compound. Shouts echoed. The stairwell was the most dangerous part. Rodriguez tossed a flashbang. Before the echo faded, he was moving up, clearing each step. Rounds cracked past Sarah's head. It was getting loud. In the 3rd room, they found civilians, Hassan's family. Sarah assigned an operator to protect them. They were coming out of this alive, no matter what. Mission focus shifted to the objective. Hassan. They hit the jackpot. Hassan was reaching for a pistol. "Don't!" Sarah shouted. He froze, eyes shifting to the 4 rifles pointed at his chest. Hassan complied, moving slowly to the ground. Package secure. Rodriguez zip-tied his hands while the team secured intelligence, but the extraction wouldn't be easy. Outside, gunfire erupted as the perimeter came under fire. Time to go. As they reached the wall, an RPG launched. The explosion threw Sarah backward, her ears ringing and vision filled with smoke. She forced herself up. "Go, go, go!" she shouted through the ringing. They scrambled over the rubble, hauling Hassan along. Bullets whipped past Sarah's leg. The heat was close enough to feel. They broke into the open desert, running for the extract point. Then the most beautiful sound, rotors. 2 Blackhawks swept in to suppress the enemy. Hassan was loaded first. Sarah did a head count. No casualties, no one left behind. Everyone was accounted for. Sarah was the last one on. Within seconds, the compound was just another cluster of buildings in the vast desert. She finally allowed herself to breathe. Mission accomplished. Everyone was coming home. Back at base, the victory was quieter. Morrison, the man who had once dismissed her, approached with respect. Sarah had turned a hostile peer into an ally through actions, not demands. She had earned the respect of her unit. She had proven herself on the field, not just to others, but to herself. Sarah was exactly where she belonged, a commander, a SEAL, a leader. The fight to prove herself would never end. But tonight she could rest. This was Sarah's mark. Mission accomplished. Outcome, success.
2 months after the dust settled in Somalia, Commander Sarah Mitchell stood within the high-stakes silence of the Pentagon. A rare presence among the heavy brass, she was the most junior officer present. The room was filled with admirals and generals, their focus on logistics and funding. But Sarah's mind wandered back to the salt and grit of base life, to the rhythmic training of her teams. When Admiral Reeves gave her the floor, she didn't offer excuses. She offered results, a detailed breakdown of the Somalia operation, satellite imagery, and tactical hard truths. She walked them through the planning and the execution. She highlighted their adaptability, their precision, and the seamless coordination that defined her unit's success. A Marine general challenged her. He questioned the risks she took during the extraction, suggesting a larger, conventional force would have been safer. Sarah didn't blink. Every military operation involves risk, she countered. A larger force would have reduced our surprise. Our approach was calculated to maximize success while minimizing civilian casualties. She told them plainly, her team adapted and persevered because that's what SEALs do. Her honesty resonated, silencing the room's skepticism. Back at the base, the impact of her leadership was measured in more than just successful missions. Applications to SEAL training had surged by 30%. Sarah was changing the culture, showing a new generation what was possible. But success brought a new crossroads, an offer that would change everything. Admiral Reeves offered her a career maker, a promotion to captain and a high-level task force position in Southeast Asia. It was the path to the top. It meant more responsibility and prestige, but it also meant leaving her unit behind. She had to decide what her legacy truly looked like. Walking the familiar grounds of her command, Sarah felt a sense of homecoming. She saw the progress her teams were making, the real work that happened in the dirt. She called the Admiral with her decision. "I'm staying," she said. "My work here isn't finished. This is where I can make the most difference right now." Her choice was immediately tested. A cargo ship hijacked off the coast of Nigeria. 23 lives hanging in the balance. "We stay ready," her team lead told her. Within 6 hours, they were preparing to launch. Sarah moved with purpose, her focus absolute. She had chosen the hands-on leadership of her unit over the safety of a promotion. Leading from the front, she was building a legacy that outlasted any rank. In the end, she knew. It's not about the stripes on your shoulder, it's about the people you bring home.
The call came 18 hours later. The pirates had rejected all ransom negotiations and threatened to start executing hostages. The green light was given for a military rescue operation. Sarah's unit moved into action with practiced efficiency. Sarah would be coordinating from the Tactical Operations Center aboard a Navy destroyer, 50 miles from the target vessel. The hardest part of command was staying back and trusting her people. She wanted to be on those boats, but her job now was bigger. The Operations Center was a hive of controlled chaos. Screens displayed real-time feeds, and communications channels buzzed. Sarah stood at the center of it all. "Execute on my mark," she said into her headset. 3, 2, 1, mark. On the screens, she watched the boat surge forward. The ship loomed large, a hulking silhouette against the starry sky. Rodriguez's voice came over the radio. "Beginning approach." Magnetic grappling hooks fired upward, catching the railing. Sarah held her breath as the first operators reached the deck. Then the report came. "Deck is clear, moving to objective." The team split up, clearing the ship section by section. Intelligence suggested the pirates were holding the crew in the forward cargo hold. Her operators were neutralizing the pirates with silent efficiency, using suppressed weapons to avoid alerting the main group. Then something went wrong. "Contact!" someone shouted. Gunfire erupted, crackling through the communications channel. "Chen, your team is needed." Within 2 minutes, they had flanked the hostile position and eliminated the threat, but the noise had alerted the main group. The pirates were now using the 23 crew members as human shields. A frontal assault was too risky, but waiting gave them time to start executing. Sarah's mind raced through options. Then William's voice came in. "Commander, I have eyes on 2 of the pirates through a porthole. Clear shots." Sarah looked at the tactical display. Williams, you'll have 2 shots. Rodriguez, breach on impact. Execute on my mark. She watched the seconds tick down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, execute. Williams's rifle cracked twice. Before the bodies hit the ground, the team was through the door. In 5 seconds of controlled chaos, the threat was neutralized. Hostages secure, Rodriguez reported. Sarah felt her knees go weak with relief. Outstanding work, all teams. 2 days later, Staff Sergeant Morrison presented a plaque. You taught me to be better. That's real leadership. They were calling it the Mitchell effect. She had proven that leadership had everything to do with courage and competence. She belonged here. She had earned her place, and Sarah Mitchell was just getting started.